This was called a tipping culture, and I believe it's primarily in regards to the USA. Now, in Britain, we don't have a big tipping culture, if any at all. Usually, the companies themselves sufficiently pay the employees so that tipping isn't required to the extent that I believe it is in the US. But yes, I'm very interested to see this video elaborate on the topic. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's go.
Tipping. A generous act of courtesy you do when you're more than satisfied with the service you were provided, and you give them a little extra money. Usually you give these to your servers at restaurants, your barber, and strippers, just as a way of telling them you're doing a good job. Go get yourself a nice pair of undies. And this overall thing.
Okay, I didn't expect the video to have a comedic edge to it, but I like it. I think he's gonna explain more in depth and actually get into it, but I quite like the tone that it has in it being quite comedic. Let me just strap up and get both earphones in. Right.
Whole thing is practiced all around the world. It's not exactly a foreign concept for anybody. Tipping is a normal thing, but no place on earth lets it give out the tip more than the USA.
America.
We go X Games mode with the tipping over here, because we be giving everybody tips. We tip our delivery drivers, taxis, bellhops, housekeeping, house movers, bartenders. If you're an in-person service, then most likely you accept tips.
Jeez, bartenders as well? Why? Why? It's his job to serve the drink, so I'm just curious as to why he should get a tip, or she. But yeah, interesting. Okay.
Even my homie's last job at the gas station, where he just pumped people's gas, he got over $100 in tips in one day. I didn't even know people tip for that. We love to tip everybody except the homeless, but has it gone too far? Let me go off real quick, but I've been seeing tipping options where I've never seen them before, like counter services, you know, cashiers. I've never heard of tipping cashiers, but those blue
Cashiers? Is this actually true? Right. Obviously, because I'm not from the USA, a lot of what I'm going to say in regards to tipping culture, for some of you guys, it's normal and it's been your lives for your entire lives. But to myself, it's not normal. So don't take it as if I'm being insulting to the actual culture that you have in place. It's coming from a place of not understanding, as well as not understanding why you should have to tip for certain things. With him having mentioned what, cashiers? Seriously, cashiers, even bartenders, I don't understand, right? It doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense because we don't do it here. Do you understand? So let me keep watching and see what he has to say more.
Blue blocks on the iPad beg to differ. One time I went to a concert and I went to the merch booth. I got a hoodie, bro handed me the hoodie, then turned around his iPad for a tip. Now I know these people don't get paid too well, but what in that interaction concurred a tip? Did he slip me $100 bill in a hoodie that I didn't see? I don't think so. So nah, I don't think I'm gonna tip. But I would usually see these in local businesses most of the time, so that's all fine and dandy. But I've heard Starbucks is also doing tips. Now, I don't really go to Starbucks because it's just not for me. I like my coffee a certain way. I like my coffee how I like my men. Long, black, and Vietnamese. And no offense to you, Starbucks.
Come on, bro. Relax, bro. What the fuck? Was that necessary? Seriously? Nah, that was not necessary at all, bro. Seriously.
Employees out there, but I'ma treat y'all like McDonald's and Burger King. Like, why would I tip the drive-through cashier? That just sounds unnecessary. And as long as those restaurants are not asking for tips, then I'm never gonna tip. Don't get no ideas, please. However, I understand why these workers would want to tip, though. They work low-wage jobs, and sometimes they got families to take care of at home. So a tip or two would make their lives a little bit easier. But
I get that premise. I truly do, but I think there's also an understanding from the perspective of, if I'm to just hand out tips for everywhere that I go, I'm putting myself at a deficit here. It's not my fault that the company that you've chosen to work for doesn't necessarily pay you enough to survive. You need to understand to a certain extent that you're choosing to be there, right? And perhaps we're not all at an age in which we've acquired sufficient skills to be able to do jobs that pay more. But that in itself as well is not the person who's purchasing the product's fault. Do you understand? So I think in the US there is a pressure to tip, right? Because I've heard stories of people visiting and then they get looked down upon because they didn't tip. Again, I'm putting myself at a deficit, giving you extra money, right, that I don't necessarily need to. And then you're gonna have an attitude with me. I know that you guys understand fully exactly what I've said, but I'll still be interested to see the counter argument into that, because it really doesn't make sense at all from my perspective of thinking. Do you understand? I understand that they're in low-paying jobs, but again, You've chosen to be there. And again, I'm putting myself at a deficit because you've chosen to be in that situation. Speak to the company. Talk to your government. You know?
I'm selfish. I'm not trying to tip at Wendy's, bro. But I know that day will eventually come. I can smell it. This is the US. We'll somehow incorporate tipping into everything, so the employers can justify why they're paying their employees minimum wage. And whenever someone doesn't tip, they get mad at us instead of the business that's giving them a non-living wage. That's why tipping is super pushed. So restaurants, for example, can pay their waiters low salaries to encourage them to aim for tips. So the waiters have to be as upstanding, top of their tippy toes, holly jolly of a worker as possible to try to get ends meet. So the customer.
That is such a shame. I think it's good to obviously be a good server, to try to go out your way to actually to get these tips, I suppose. But you shouldn't need to have to do that to essentially make a living, like to be happy with the shift that you've just had. You should just be there to do a job, you know, do it with a smile, I suppose. But to have to go above and beyond, because it's almost like it's the Hunger Games out here, you know, that shouldn't be the case, though, should it? You know, that shouldn't. The restaurant really needs to take more responsibility as to why these people aren't getting enough money. Because in the UK, I believe there's structures put in place to which that they at least have to have minimum wage, like a wage enough for them to be able to survive to an extent. You know what I mean? Not that they should have to rely on other people that are just there to buy food and then just that's it, you know. But how is that even in place? I don't understand how the restaurants get away with that. That's crazy.
Customer can walk away feeling happy about their experience, the owner of the restaurant being happy because of the profit and good look of the business, while the waiters walk away with a $2 tip and food stamps for a salary.
Yeah.
Or at least that's just my theory, my game theory. Now, people that have never had a job might say, ain't that a good thing? It makes the waiters actually try to do their job well, bro. Ain't nobody want to work minimum wage, period, bro, in this economy. Doesn't matter if I'm getting tips. All it takes is one bad day of penny pinching tips to be like, well, Scoob, I guess we have to eat whatever's in the fridge tonight. I should know. I used to be a waiter. I was a waiter for weddings and other events in my late senior year, and my wage was decent, $15 an hour, and for a high school student, that's pretty good. Plus, I only worked on the weekends. Man, this job was gonna be a breeze. But that was only because I was a kid. I ain't need that much in the first place. All I thought is, if I can afford food, sold. But to spoil the fun, most of the time, I did not get any tips or very little tips. And 95% of my gigs was at weddings, so the food was already paid for. I was giving these niggas free food, and I got nothing. And I was always all nice and shit. I was never mean. I was all like, hello, hot diggity day. What would you lovely people like to have?
That's essentially the difference in the US. In the UK, waiters don't need to, like, they don't have to necessarily go above and beyond, because the customer isn't the one that's paying their wages. Like, they are because they're purchasing the food, but it's not directly coming from the customer. It's coming from a wage that's within the company of the restaurant, right? So they don't have to essentially be all like, oh, what can I get for you guys today? Oh, wow, can I take your canary for a walk as well? Oh, beautiful. What would you like, lady miss? You know, it's just going above and beyond to that extent. It's just kind of, you know, what would you like? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Simple. No need to do all the extra stuff, which is cool. You know, if that's your personality type, that's cool. But they also don't have to, like, go above and beyond, as I'm saying. Very interested in that. So it also begs the question, like, do some restaurants strictly survive off tips, like the employees? I think I've heard of that being the case, but I'm not 100% sure.
I thought I was doing a good job. I even shaved off my hair to be more presentable, which is something I still regret to this day. Don't cut the hair you love for no jobs. Unless it look like this. You might get no job with that. I did get tips sometimes. The biggest tip I've ever gotten was $40 from a table of old white women and a gay dude. And from then on, they became my target audience. I'd always pick the table with the gay niggas, because I know they'd give me the biggest tip. And me complaining about small tips might sound like a trivial problem, but I'm talking about, like, in the grand scheme of things of this kind of job. Like, if I was an adult with this job, paying bills, taxes, rent, all that, I could not live like this. I know this because I had coworkers in their late 20s, 30s, 40s who said they couldn't take care of themselves with this wage. That's why they sold drugs on the side. That's why we should hold these businesses accountable to have higher wages for their employees.
Exactly.
So they don't have to rely on tips anymore. We must rise against this corrupt business practice. Who's with me?
I'm with you, buddy.
You're just saying.
Wait, that's not my country's problem, but I still have a level of care for my fellow human beings. So yeah, I'm with you, bro. Let's go.
Business practice. Who's with me?
Woo!
You're just saying this because you just don't want to pay tips no more. Well,
Yeah.
duh. I don't like tipping. Who does? Who wants to pay more of their own money when they don't have to? I'm not a misogynist.
Thank you. He's speaking a lot of sense, bro. Or is he just speaking sense because I agree with what he's saying? And that's the perspective I pretty much have, perhaps. But yeah, makes a lot of sense, bro. I don't know who the fuck wants to pay that extra bit of cash like that.
Who does? Who wants to pay more of their own money when they don't have to? I'm not a misogynist, a masochist. Wrong word. I am the other one. They don't have to. I'm not a misogynist, a masochist. Wrong word.
That's so off topic, but that's funny as fuck. Oh, dude, that must have hurt.
I am the other one. I'm not saying I don't tip. I do. But mainly because I want to at least try to balance out my good deeds with my bad ones when I'm in the pearly gates. I'm not trying to go to hell because I didn't tip my IHOP waitress who so happened to be battling cancer and diabetes that one time. I'm trying to get to heaven. But if I gave zero, darns, dangs, or I would almost never tip. I would look at the bill.
I mean, I feel you, bro. To be honest, if they introduce this type of culture in the UK, people will be like, piss off, mate. What? Why am I going to pay you with the money that I should be able to pay you because I want to, right? Like, if you go to a counter, let's say, in the UK, and they spin one of those things that say you should tip or not, like 20%, 40%, for the most part, even if you pick no one's going to look at you sideways. Like, you know, the person behind the counter doesn't really care because really and truly, the tips aren't going directly to them. You know, it's more so for the company itself. I think the only time, for the most part, people do tip, and I don't even know if this is a tip, this is more like a donation. It's usually with those machines. Let's say you're at McDonald's, the kiosks, and you're like, you're about to finish paying, and then you round off to the nearest pound or whatever towards a charity. That's most of the time. I assume most people do tip, more so donation. That's the most time I honestly do tip, just rounding it off, you know. Let's say you paid something for £5.70, round it off to £6, and the charity gets like what, 30 pence or 30 cents, something like that, right? But yeah.
Then pay the bill, then end it there. I would only tip if I received outstanding service, because, you know, most services nowadays are just average, you know, regular stuff, nothing to point out. But you still supposed to tip. In a perfect world, I would only tip if the person is enthusiastically nice. Fast service, give me a back massage, and also pay for my food. Then I would tip. I can understand tipping delivery drivers because they also need the money to pay for their gas, but that
The delivery driver one also is quite interesting. They do actually have to pay for their own gas, isn't it? That is true. But again, how that has nothing to do with me, bro. That really just doesn't have anything. I get that they're going and delivering the food that you weren't. You were lazy enough to not go and pick up. I understand that. But again, in the UK, from my understanding, is that the companies essentially pay them sufficient enough for them to live off, right? Now that depends where you are, because if you're in London and if the salary is the same as, let's say, in the Midlands or further up north, it's not enough just based on where you are. But if you're living further up north, you can use that money to survive, right? So they don't rely on tips. So you rarely see drivers in the UK actually get tipped, and if they don't get tipped, they're not gonna like fucking be pissed off about it. I've seen some drivers in the US where they're like, I'm taking the food back. It's like, bro, talk to the company that you signed up for and are working for, and talk to them. Why are they not paying you enough that you need to get pissed off at a customer who's just using the delivery company service in order to get food? What? It doesn't make sense. Exactly. So when I'm saying this doesn't make sense, it's because the culture in the UK and perhaps in Europe and other places around the world is that it's not structured in a way that people are having to rely on tips in order to survive. Do you understand? Right? So that's where the misunderstanding comes from. It just does not make sense to the majority of us, because it's not the problem of the person who's like ordering the food, who's paying for something, you know, to actually tip. It shouldn't be our problem. You're putting me at a deficit. Do you understand? You're putting me as an individual who perhaps has a family to take care of, because the company isn't paying you a sufficient amount and you're choosing to be there. Again, that's a common denominator right there. You're choosing to be there. There's other jobs that compensate the amount of money you earn. And again, skills come into place, but that's up to you to gain the skills necessary so that you can make yourself a higher value person within society to then earn more money, right? So you should never blame the customer necessarily because it's not really their problem. I would say, I know the Americans think different about this one, but that's just my perspective on it.
But that can go with the higher wage argument that I said earlier. And if they show up mad late, then I don't have to tip them. We should bring back the 30 minutes or less or the food is free rule. I'd start ordering food from Russia on purpose. Save myself a stack. And like I said earlier, I know these people need these tips to survive. I know they have mouths to feed. I know. I feel you. But in the back of my mind, I know I have mouths to feed too.
Yes.
My own mouth. And tipping is slowly taking that away from me.
Yeah, man.
Now I'm gonna starve. And remember earlier when I said tipping is not a foreign concept? Well, apparently it is to most countries. Every time I look in the comment section for a post regarding tipping, 90% of the comments will be from foreigners saying, well, over here in Timbuktu, Jumanji land, we never even heard of tipping. I didn't even know Jumanji was a real place, but it sounds like heaven if they don't tip. And it makes me think the people of the U.S. here are purposely fucking me with this tipping shit. It's to be expected.
Guys, you pretty much are being fucked up, man. You pretty much are. Like, honestly, that culture has too much expectations on the customers to take their money away. I mean, that might be what it is. Like, just slowly take away money from the common people, by the common people, I suppose. But yeah, very interesting there. If you receive exceptional service, 20 and 25% is customary. In major cities of the US, however, 20% is considered to be a good tip. 20%. So if I spend £100, I'm expected to essentially put on an extra £20. Fuck right off. 20 tip note. In most larger city restaurants in the USA, the server has to pay back a portion of their tips to the bartender. Wait, hold on, what? So you're not even getting the entire tip. Whoa, that is fucked. So it goes into a pot to share with everyone. So if you're like an over enthusiastic, let's say server who's serving exceptional service, all that money isn't just gonna go directly to you. That is fucked, dude. that is so... Dude, restaurants are messed up. Oh my god.
Did we tip 20 to 25% of the bill here? You have a better chance pulling a gun on me and robbing me because that's the only way you're gonna get that much money out of me. And I've been seeing news reports about how there's a spread of self-checkout machines with tipping options.
Self-checkout?
Who the hell am I tipping? Mr. and Mrs. Walmart themselves?
Exactly.
Why they need my money? Why they need a tip? Any self-checkout tipping machine out there could suck the tip of my pee-pee. That's what you could do. And like I said earlier, I do tip my delivery drivers and waiters. I do. But I
do sometimes, but I don't fucking do a ridiculous amount. I do sometimes, and it depends. It depends how the person has interacted with me, but it's more rare that I do tip than I don't tip, and I don't feel any type of shame in regards to me doing that. Because again, I'm doing it because I want to, not that because I'm expected to do it. There's a difference, right? And yeah, that's the difference pretty much.
Hey, tipping! I bloody hate it! If I could abolish it, I would! I hate it! However, I know it's the right thing to do. Or at least I was raised to believe if I don't tip my waiters, I'm a which I don't really believe now,
That's
but
messed up.
I begrudgingly admit tipping won't kill me, so I still tip. How much I tip? None of your beeswax. And even though I tip most of the time, I'm not gonna tell y'all you should tip. You could do whatever you want with the money you've earned. Like, I could be spending my money on helping the children in Africa and building houses there. But how else am I supposed to pay for my drip? I need money for my clothes, man. Those kids in Africa, they're not gonna pay for me. But yeah, those are my thoughts on tipping. Employees need better pay so I can stop paying. And in conclusion,
Element of surprise. Did you pray?
You know what? I think that was a fantastic video. That's true. And it's interesting coming from an American's perspective as well, because I would assume that the majority of people in the USA do actually feel like this, but they feel pressured to tip. So that's why they end up doing it. Usually the case is if everyone's doing the thing, you're probably going to do the thing as well. Even if you don't really want to do the thing, you're going to do the thing. But yeah, I think it was pretty spot on. This is how I would assume the majority of the world actually does feel towards tipping. They don't necessarily want to do it, and they don't do it, but it's the US. It's a massive culture there to tip, and I do think it is pretty much out of control when it comes to the point that self-checkout machines are requiring you to tip. What the fuck? What the fuck? I mean, I don't know, like maybe there's been protests and I just haven't seen them. Perhaps there has or there hasn't been, but that is ridiculous. You got me fucked up. The day that I have $100 bill, £100 bill, and I'm expected to pay an extra 25% on top. I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. You know what else I could do with that money? A lot of things. A lot of other things. I could purchase things for my mom. I could do stuff with my family. I could take my girl out. What? Just give someone because they gave me exceptional service. Perhaps it has to be exceptionally exceptional, but it's very rare that you do actually come across exceptional service. Perhaps in the US you do, and that's why people tip servers for the most part. I don't know. I haven't been there, but yeah, from where I am, normality is not tipping to this extent, okay? And I feel no shame about it, and I would gladly say knowingly that British people feel absolutely no shame not tipping, because we know that the restaurants themselves and the employees are paid sufficiently and that they're deciding to be there, So yeah, if it works in America, which I suppose it is to an extent since it's been happening for so long, then you guys do you. It's your lives, it's your culture. Fix it together or don't. It's up to you guys. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a fantastic video. Go ahead and check out Degenerosity. Why did I say that? Degenerosity. Yeah, check out his channel. That was a fantastic video. And leave a like and sub. Yeah, take it easy, guys, and peace.